You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your number one source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
The AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz TV's The Amazing Race After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's The Amazing Race After Show.
Love this song.
So dramatic, and it's so good, just like the show. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning back into AfterBuzz TV, the number one show, at least in our minds and hearts.
Yes.
The Amazing Race. It is season 23, episode 3.
King Arthur style.
That's right, King Arthur style. Before we get into all the details, I mean, what a great episode. What did you think, Jessica?
Overall, loved it. To be honest, though, I was sad who we said bye to.
It has been 2 weeks in a row that we are devastated.
I know. And I kind of wanted this to be a non-elimination challenge.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I didn't want them to go. But
I know.
we'll get into that later.
We're going to get into that. Look at us. We're already going into the show, but we
I
haven't
know.
even introduced ourselves. Once again, hi, everybody. I'm Justin Nicols.
And I'm Jessica Carroll.
And this is so exciting. So our good buddy James, who also co-hosts on this show, you all know him and love him. Well, he is away doing very important things right now in his busy, busy world. But we have him live via phone.
Yes, James.
How are you, buddy?
Hi, guys.
First of all, what dedication that you still join us here via phone for the show. I know you're busy, so you might not be able to stay the whole episode, but it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you. I mean, any chance to talk about The Amazing Race, of course, I'm dedicated.
Oh, God bless you.
course.
So, James, overall, what did you think of this show, of this episode?
I really liked this episode, and there's a lot of teams that are really starting to grow on me. And I was reading a lot of fans' responses online,
Yeah.
and it seems like a pretty general consensus that there's so many teams that you want to root for. So I loved this episode, and it was obviously a first in Amazing Race history that Phil had to meet the eliminated team at an airport. So there's a lot of things that I really loved about this entire episode.
Yeah, it was such a good episode, although, this is 2 weeks in a row now that has absolutely shocked me how it ended. And 2 weeks in a row, I mean, I guess it's part of the challenge of The Amazing Race, but 2 weeks in a row that the teams have struggled or been eliminated due to no fault of their own.
Right.
But
Nothing
just
they could control.
crazy circumstances.
I know. And I felt bad for these guys.
They did. So we started out, they were still in Chile. And right away, they were told they're flying to none other than Lisbon, Portugal.
Yes.
Can you imagine? I mean, what a beautiful city. What an amazing opportunity.
Oh, I would have been so excited. Have you ever been there?
I have been to Lisbon.
You have?
I have. Yeah, I was lucky enough to. I've been so fortunate to travel all over the world, and it's such an incredibly beautiful city. Oh, I used to work on cruise ships.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. Now, anyway, though, so the whole thing is they have to go to Lisbon, Portugal, all the way from Chile. So not, a short trip at all. And once again, it's the race all about the
Flights.
getting the flights, and that's always so critical. So the teams are off. Now, the first team out of the race, they were in first last week.
Right.
We have none other than Chester and Ephraim, our NFL.
They
play for Texas.
PFL. The
We're going to go ahead and
NFL.
call that the NFL. I'm going to take it that you're also not a huge football player, Jessica.
NFL, that's what I meant.
Got it. Anyway, so they play for some football league you might have heard of called the NFL. And they were first last week, so they got to go to the airport first. But when I say airport, they actually went to the travel agency, like some of the teams did. They checked in, the woman booked them their flights, and they were told there's only a few seats on that flight, and they were going to get in at 7 a.m.
Right, so they're stoked.
They're so stoked,
Right.
And then the other two teams that were in second and third, they came into the same travel agency. went to get on the same flight, and they got it. However, there was instantly confusion, right?
Yeah.
Because they were told there weren't that many seats
left.
So already Chester and Ephraim were like, what the hell just happened?
Right. Like, let's just look this over one more time.
And that travel agent booked them on the wrong flight. I couldn't
No,
believe
the wrong
it.
day.
The wrong day.
The wrong day. They got in a whole day late.
James, what did you think when that happened, buddy?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm slowly starting to catch up on the conversation. My phone's being weird. I was like really floored that this ticket attendant, messed up the date. Like, you think that with the amount of time that Chester and Ephraim were sitting at that counter,
Yeah.
that they would have already have gone over the finalization of these tickets. And the fact that two other teams had to come in for them to realize that she made a mistake, I was like, something's not adding up in the edit, or this woman needs to be fired from her job.
Because this is what she does professionally. Now, maybe this is me just being paranoid in the world of reality television. I mean, you don't think that for dramatic reasons the producers, did this, do you, James?
No, I don't think that producers would interfere like that. That's something that I really appreciate about The Amazing Race.
Yeah.
I think that the integrity of the show is there, because I doubt that they really wanted Chester and Ephraim to go this soon and this early, just because they were such big characters. However, it was just a case of bad luck for them, Like, what are the odds that was going to happen to them of all teams? There's still 9 teams left in the race.
And also, this kind of worked towards the producer's advantage, because how often do you get a flight where only one team can actually get the tickets and everyone else either has to go on standby? That is crucial.
Totally, yeah, very, very crucial.
And, we've said it before, but getting on a flight 4 hours ahead of time, you want that so bad. And so the fact that they were thinking in their head, we're golden. We're going to get in 4 hours before anyone else. We just got some of the last tickets on this flight, and then they look at the date and it's wrong.
It's wrong.
That's so out of their control. And they went from thinking, they're going to keep their first spot, to being a day late.
Now, here's, though, where I disagreed with what they did next. Because, but before we get to that, so then a couple other teams, though, like the Afghanimals, they said, you know what, we're just going to completely bypass the travel agency altogether, and we're going to go straight to the airport.
Right.
So that was a pretty good idea, because you have maybe more options for airline tickets. However, going back to Chester and Ephraim, here's where I think they made their mistake, and it's the exact same mistake that Rowan and Shane made last episode, and it's what got them eliminated. I understand the need to get in as early as possible. I do. However, they knew that other teams were going to be on that later flight that would get in 5 hours later, I think.
Yeah.
They decided, though, they were going to risk having 2 or 3 connections to get in just 2 hours later.
Right.
Risky. The thing is, and you saw this strategy with the Afghanimals later on, people are starting to learn. If you're not going to make it on that first bus trip, or if you're not going to make it on that first flight, sometimes instead of being really risky, just stay with the rest of the group, because then you have someone to compete against.
Right.
And I think that is where Chester and Ephraim, they should have done that. Instead of doing all those million connections that, of course, all went wrong, they could have just stayed with the group, and they probably would not have been eliminated from this competition. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think if they went with the rest of the group, they could have easily stayed in this competition. But I do see where they were going, and I feel that everyone else wants to try to find their own ways away from the group. So I understand where they were coming from to try to find their own way. But knowing that you have 2 connecting flights, that is just
asking for trouble.
It is. And even how close those connecting flights were, the fact where they had to run to get to the next one, that was probably not the best decision.
James, what about you? What do you think? Good decision or bad decision to take that risk and take a flight that would get them in only 2 hours later, but multiple connections?
No, I definitely agree with what you said, that, if you're going to take a risk, it's when you already know you're in the back of the pack, to take that risk is a super high risk to take, especially with $1 million in the line.
Yeah.
So I think that it's the anxiety of knowing that there's $1 million in the line, and the competitive drive where people just kind of forget to think with common sense.
Yeah.
And I kind of equate it to, like, my commute in the morning when I go to work. Like, I take the 405 to the other side of town, and I get so anxious. I know that just staying on the 405 is the fastest route for me, but sometimes I'll get so anxious that I take a detour and I take side roads, and it takes me 30 to 45 minutes more than I needed in my commute that morning.
I totally agree.
If you know what the time is when you're going to arrive, just stick with it and don't let that impulse and anxiety take the best of you, because otherwise you're going to lose time in the race, and time is precious when you're racing for $1 million.
It really is, but I know that there's $1 million on the line. However, I feel like the strategies that we saw with Rowan and Shane and with Chester and Ethan, where they're trying a really risky procedure to save an hour or two, I feel like that's maybe a strategy to use a little bit later on in the race. When you still have the cushion of 9 teams, if you know that you're going to be on a flight with 4 or 5 of them, I'm okay with not taking that risk and not trying to get second or third, but just knowing I'm okay still in 5th place because I have that cushion. I have that time this far into the race.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Also,
I think
for me,
the story is you want to make sure you're on a flight with another team at all times. You
Right.
do not want to steer away from them, especially with airlines, because as we saw, there's so many delays and so much airport drama that if you're with another team, at least you have that security to know you're not last and you're not alone.
Exactly. Okay, so anyway, even though there's a lot of flight delays, we have multiple teams on multiple different flights. They all eventually get to Lisbon.
before we get to Lisbon, I just have to say my baseball bunnies stepped up their game this episode.
Loved that.
Oh,
I'm so
man.
glad you brought that up.
Yes, they got to the airport. They saw, okay, the team ER.
Yeah. Well, Tim and Maria, the X's, and Travis and Nicole, the ER doctors.
The ER doctors. And then so there was 3 people waiting to get on standby.
Yeah.
I think it was Jason and Amy.
It was Jason and
It was Jason and Amy, Tim and Marie, and then the baseball girls, Nikki and Kim.
Yeah, and the baseball girls thinking, okay, the gate's closed. We're not going to just sit and wait. We're going to try to find our new way. So they went to that executive lounge, talked to the girl, and I love these 2 because they are so kind to everyone who they're actually asking for help.
Yeah.
I mean, every taxi driver, they're so cute. When they saw that girl
Playing
singing
the guitar,
with
like, you're so beautiful.
Okay, so the girl in the red dress, after they had just got to, when they were getting their clue.
Yeah.
She reminded me of the emoji. You know that emoji of the red dress girl?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I saw her and I literally thought, okay, that is a live version of that red dress emoji girl.
Yeah.
I just had to throw it out.
But, it was so smart they went to the airport lounge, though, and I used to work for the airlines, and there's a million ways that you can get put on standby besides waiting at the gate. What a smart strategy. However, what I thought was even smarter, and I wouldn't have thought to do it, was when they went to the checkout counter, and they were getting so much crap from Tim and Marie. Big shocker, because Marie gives everybody crap. But even the nice people like Jason and Amy, they were like, how can you cut in line like this? Instead of defending themselves and saying, listen, we went to the airport lounge and did this, that's what I would have said. I was like, we deserve to be on the front of the line. They kept their mouths shut, and they just said, we found another way.
Exactly.
They didn't give up their hint because they're probably going to use that strategy again later on in the future.
And that was brilliant. And also, why do they have to prove or tell anyone their strategy, just like you said? They can keep that to themselves, and it would have just added conflict and drama, and you can tell these girls are not into adding any more tension. So they just said, you know what, we're first on the line, give us our ticket. And I thought that they were holding themselves saying, listen, you guys can be against us and try to say that we don't deserve this, but we do, our name's on the line.
And I was really excited this episode because we made some predictions at the end of last episode here on AfterBuzz TV. And finally, James, we were on the money with a few of them. However, this was one of them where I saw the baseball girls in a new light. I always viewed them as weaker. Maybe they haven't really understood the real world because of the life that they've probably been leading lately, and they haven't had to worry about being really tough and competitive because they probably live a pretty good life right now. These girls are smart. They came to play. They are forming alliances. They are trashing alliances. I saw this episode, the baseball girls step it up, and I used to say they were going to be the next ones out. I'm like, wait a minute. They are in
My
to
girls
win it.
are in. And the fact that they probably have traveled in luxury and been to executive lounges, they know what happens in there. And that people in executive lounge make happen.
Yes.
And so they knew exactly what to do. They've been in those lounges before, and they know, you know what, we're going to go because we know how it works.
Absolutely. James, good move by them?
What was that?
What do you think? Also a good move? Your opinion?
Oh yeah. And Kim even said when she was at the airport, it was actually one of her OTFs. She said, oh, by the way, OTF is like on the fly. Sorry.
I say I love your terminology for those of you that are not working in the world of reality television like we do. Yeah, OTF is when the producers grab one of the show's participants. They grab them really quickly and film a quick interview. OTF on the fly.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
Well, she had one where she said, we didn't come here to get kicked off. We came here to compete. And like you guys said, I think the baseball wives are, in general, I was reading a lot of tweets too, are being seen in a whole new light. And I am rooting for them. And I didn't say that the last two episodes. So I'm excited to see their progression as the race goes on.
Yeah, I am too. Now, so the race does move on.
Yes.
And they do finally get to Lisbon, Portugal through layovers in all different areas from Spain, layovers in, England, wherever. And so their first thing they do is once they land, they have to get in a taxi and they have to go find this painting with the woman playing her guitar.
The emoji lady.
We're just going to call her the emoji lady. And so they go and they get this painting. However, this doesn't really say what they have to do. They just have to figure out what this painting means and where it goes. I'm surprised, though, that, no offense to this museum, but it's just coaches. And it seemed like everyone they showed the painting to, they're like, oh, yeah, the Coach Museum.
Right.
So yeah, that's what they had to do. They had to go to the Coach Museum, and once they got to this museum, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the title of this museum, but the detour was tiles or miles, which basically meant you had to do some calculations and figure out how many miles Magellan traveled around the world.
Right.
Or using tiles, you had to put together this puzzle of famous artworks.
Yes.
This was interesting, and I liked this one. I liked this detour because I didn't feel like one challenge or the other gave a huge advantage. They seemed, time-wise, at least pretty equal. What would you have done?
I would have done the tiles.
Yeah?
Because math is, miles, you just think, okay, miles, numbers, and that is just not in my expertise list. So I would have done tiles. I grew up doing puzzles. What about you? What would you have done?
I think I would have done miles,
Yeah.
I can do mathematics. I used to have a million different jobs, but I used to be in aviation. I used to be a pilot. So we used a lot of mathematics. We did a lot of traveling. So calculating of miles for distances and all that was, been very easy. However, with these clues, they don't really tell you what you're going to do. So it's easy for us to say afterwards. James, what about you, man? What would you have done?
Hands down, I would have done tiles. I'm very hands-on, and I'm more visual than anything. And I just feel like carrying that big thing that they were doing to measure the distance would just really been frustrating for me. So I would have done tiles without a doubt.
Yeah. And this was also interesting because this is where you started to see really some great teamwork. And
yes, I wanted to talk about our favorite teams, the ER doctors and the dating couple, are like kind of in an alliance now.
For sure. Big
and
time
I wrote
alliance.
in my notes, yes, over and over, because I'm so excited my favorite teams are working together.
Yeah, Travis and Nicole and Jason and Amy did such a good job working together. They weren't even competing and like trying to shove each other off the map.
They were actually a team.
Because they did miles and they really just did it together, and it worked so well for them, and that should be a clue to the other teams if they only could have seen it, how this should have gone along for them as well.
Right.
So then some teams did tiles, miles. One of the points, though, I have to bring it up, the Afghanimals. God bless them because they're so entertaining. But I don't know if you you guys caught it, but there was one line that was my favorite of them all. So they decided to do miles, and they were trying to figure out which route Magellan took.
Oh,
and did anyone else count when the Afghanimals, I think it was Leo, but it may have been Jamal. He goes, well, I think Magellan went through the Panama Canal.
I wrote that in my notes too. And he stepped on it and he was like,
Do you really think the
That
Panama
was even
Canal was
around?
even in existence when Magellan was there? Wouldn't that have been so much? I couldn't believe it. Like,
I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was so good.
and we got all the Afghanimals, they also, there's a lot of interesting strategy going into play. And, I don't want to go out of order, but I do want to quickly just jump back to all the airport madness because, they of course have their race wives, Allie and Ashley, the LA King Ice Girls. However, they understand, how the thing works, and they told the Oklahoma boys, Tim and Danny,
Yeah.
they're going to be their friend. You should travel with us. Just saying, basically we know we can beat you as long as we're with you guys. We're good to go. And James, I know that last time too, I've always said in both the previous episodes, I'm really nervous about Tim and Danny because they just don't seem that world and travel smart,
Street smart.
Street smart.
Yeah.
I was also, just like the baseball wives, not only when they were in Portugal, but the airport, Tim and Danny are, they're quick learners, and they're understanding not only how to do this race, they're understanding how these teams are working, and they immediately raised an eyebrow and were saying, this is not right what the Afghanimals are trying to do. Well, I think in the first episode, they would have been like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So they definitely played a smart game. Also, once they got to Lisbon, too, they were doing a really good job.
And was it the Oklahoma boys that Marie, the ex's girl with the hot pink hair, she was kind of using her express pass to get information at the airport, and they were just not gonna.
They weren't impressed by it.
No.
Because, she was trying to figure out what flight they were on and if there was an earlier one. And they said, no, there's no earlier one, blah, blah, blah. And she thought they were lying to them, which they were.
Right.
And she was, well, I have an express pass. Help me. And they're like, good luck.
I know. I thought that was good for them.
Yeah.
Keep your lips sealed. You guys are all in the competition together. You got to defend each other.
It's interesting, though, because when they were doing tiles or miles, there we go. The team, Tim and Marie, they have been so strong. They got first place the very first episode, how they won their express pass.
Yeah.
They really struggled today, didn't they, James?
Oh, yeah. I was surprised by that, too. And I was like, they're starting to, really let their ex's stereotype take the best of them.
Yeah.
But they could not get their shiz together.
No, not at all.
They were dropping pieces, breaking tiles.
Yeah.
And the Afghanimals, they lied to them, to their faces. And I thought that was great. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the exes because I think that their story's a little made up, but that's okay. So I liked how they lied to them to make them more panic and realize, like, okay, we got to do this because, of course, that just makes you more frantic. So they were dropping pieces, but I think the Afghanimals took it a little too far to say that the NHL girls,
the Ice Girls,
took 3 hours.
The thing that I found so interesting about this was, I think the Afghanimals knew that Tim and Marie would not buy their made-up lie.
Okay.
However, I thought it was really funny, though, because I think this was a way for the Afghanimals to just show Tim and Marie they don't give a flying about them. And they don't care about their express passes. So it's kind of a way for the Afghanimals to be like, screw you, we're not impressed by you.
Right.
And guess what? You're not the number one team anymore. We don't have to kiss your ass.
Exactly. Kind of like, oh, we're 3 hours ahead of you.
Yeah. So anyway, but once you either did the miles or tiles, once you completed your challenge, and most of them did it, I would say fairly quickly. This wasn't one that drastically changed someone's place in the race. They did it and they kind of kept going.
Right, but normally when you switch detours, it can really put you in last place.
Yeah.
And the Afghanimals.
Now that is taking a risk.
Yeah,
Yes.
and both of them decided to switch.
Which I guess I don't know, but I didn't think the
just,
miles seemed that hard.
Well,
and they were like,
they didn't realize that Earth is round, right?
or that the Panama Canal was not just naturally always there for thousands of years.
They were just struggling, bottom line. And the Ice Girls, they were seriously struggling. They were just throwing out numbers.
Yeah.
I think it's 5,000. I thought that was pretty funny. So
Yeah.
But I was surprised that both of them switched and they didn't want to just stick to that one, maybe try again.
It was definitely an interesting detour, but it didn't alter things yet too far into the as far as placement in the race.
But sometimes that can be the game
really
changer.
can.
Yeah.
Yep. It really can. So once they did the tiles or miles, they then had to travel on to a medieval times location, and they had to become knights, right?
Yes, with their bow and arrow.
And yeah, that's correct. They had shields placed up, and they had kind of bow and arrow / crossbows, some type of contraption, and one person had to do shooting. They had to shoot the arrow into these shields, which I think would be really difficult.
Really hard, but yet so fun.
So fun, and I'm surprised most of these teams, they did pretty well.
Pretty well, yeah. I wrote in my notes here that, where was it?
James, were you impressed by how well everyone did?
Yeah, and this kind of roadblock brought me back to that one. I think it was like 3 seasons ago. Do you remember when that girl, it was Claire from Book and Claire, and she had to do a catapult thing very similar in like a castle arena of sorts where the watermelon came back and smacked her in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love when they go to like the knights and like going back in time, I guess, and doing like the culture stuff. Because like they were using like those stuff that they would back in medieval times, you know?
Yeah, really. And you know what? And I think also, you bring up a good point. I think that's one of the reasons why I really like The Amazing Race so much, is they really do pay really careful attention to the culture and the history of each place that they visit, and they really showcase that. There are other shows out there, I think like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and I don't watch those shows too seriously, but I know this last one, I think the girl took the guys, I don't know, all these different places around the world, but they really just kind of did like kind of some cheesy romantic things that they could have probably done anywhere, And so that's why I really like this, because whether it's medieval times or something about the history, the Coach Museum, this show does a wonderful job about talking about the history of each country.
And the culture. You really get a feel for it. Yeah.
You really do. And so, so they do these bow and arrows.
So the bow and arrows, I thought it was funny because the Jason, he nailed it first time.
Bam. First shot.
And
they were neck and neck. They were traveling with Travis and Nicole, the ER doctor.
Right. And then Danny, the ER doctor, he had a little bit of trouble, but he got it right, soon after. Yeah. The Beard friends nailed it.
They were great.
And also, they were so good at the puzzle.
Yeah.
And the reason why, this is just my theory, is that everyone does puddles.
We'll say puzzles instead.
There's a lot of puddles, but there's also a lot of puzzle doing in the woods. Like when you go to a cabin, you make a puzzle. So they nailed that one.
They did. It was like, what else are we gonna do in the woods? Of course we're gonna do well at puzzles.
Puzzles. Let's just jump in puddles and make puzzles.
Yeah, but to show how tight this race was, all the teams are doing the bow and arrow, and a couple teams missed a few times, but pretty much though it seemed, at least in the editing, that they got it in the first 3 to 5 shots. Yeah. Most teams could hit the shield, which then you can get your next clue. But to show how tight the race was, so the first teams to arrive to this bow and arrow shooting roadblock was, Travis and Nicole, the ER doctors, and Jason and Amy. And Jason and Amy, since Jason got it first, they got to go in the taxi and move on to the next portion of the race. And they were saying, they made it seem like Travis was taking forever to hit the shield, and they showed Nicole being like, just focus. But then they said in the taxi, and once they passed, she was like, well, now they've gotten a whole 6 to 7 minute lead on us. So it's interesting that even though the show makes it look like they've been stuck forever, many times they're only 5 to 6 minutes behind each other. It's a really tight race.
Yeah.
So anyway, so everyone does a pretty good job. And once you complete the challenge, it is then a final race to this beautiful, beautiful castle.
Yeah, the
looking
pit
out
stop.
over the city.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the pit stop. And it just seems like every race to the pit stop so far this season has been just a final mix up or a hookup that throws a team off, right?
Because who was it that the dating couple had some confusion with the taxi driver, right?
Exactly. Well, apparently the signs to go to this beautiful castle were not very clear. And Jason and Amy, this is the first time that we've really seen them disagree. And a couple teams are already starting to show that. Because remember last episode, the Afghanimals had that total freak out and meltdown with each other when they didn't pay the cab properly. and that was the first time you saw their personalities like totally come out and change.
Yeah.
I think clearly the stress of the race is already starting to get to some of these strong couples because, yeah, Jason and Amy have been nothing but strong, and they just had a full-on disagreement on which way to go. I don't know about you, James, but I'm really surprised the cab driver didn't take more of an initiative. I mean, there's no way he didn't know where to go. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is like I think if the teams are not communicating well enough to their cab driver,
Yeah.
because I feel like in that kind of situation, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a taxi driver. Like if you have a camera crew and like a producer and like this team that's like yelling and trying to figure out where they're going, I feel like for the taxi driver it's gonna be a lot and it's gonna fluster them. So yeah, I could go two ways. Maybe the information that the team is relaying to their taxi driver isn't 100% clear, or it's just that taxi driver shouldn't be a taxi driver,
Yeah, I just felt so bad for Jason and Amy because, I mean, they've moved up quite a few positions on this portion of the race, and they were going to get potentially get first place. And I just felt like they were like, should we go left, right? I don't know. And the taxi driver just kept looking at them like, well, tell me which way you want to go. And I would kind of want to look at the taxi driver and be like,
you tell us.
This is your job.
Yeah.
I have $1 million on the line. I need your expertise right now.
Exactly.
So anyway, what ended up happening was, of course, so Jason and Amy are in the lead by 7 minutes. Travis and Nicole get in the cab, and they get in a cab who apparently the cab driver knows exactly where to go.
And that's another thing that they don't have control over. If they can communicate with the taxi driver and the taxi knows exactly where to go, it's just luck of the draw.
And, also, I think it still helps. We didn't see it a lot, but I'm sure she used it. And I don't want to offend anyone that speaks Spanish or Portuguese, but there is a lot of similarities in the language. I know, of course, that they're different, but I'm sure, too, that help with transportation a lot still, that they're in a romantic language country where she can use some of her Spanish skills to try to speak some Portuguese. So I'm sure she was able to communicate a lot better with the cab driver than, say, the dating couple Jason and Amy were. So they ended up getting to the castle first, which is incredible. And you know what? Normally, I always kind of root for the underdog, and they were in this leg. Travis and Nicole have already almost got first, but I was really excited for them because
I was too.
They ended up, of course, sneaking ahead of Jason and Amy. They checked in first, and you know what? They proved to themselves that it wasn't a fluke. They got first on the first episode, and they truly did deserve to get first place.
This time.
Yeah, James, were you happy that they got first?
Oh, hell yeah. I was so ecstatic. And the fact that, again, like I said, two of my favorite teams are working with each other, and they're two strong teams. And I definitely think them have like a huge lifespan in the race. I think they're going to go very far.
Yeah.
So I love that Nicole and Travis came in first, and the fact that Jason and Amy came in second, and they're all working together makes me very happy.
Yeah, so their teamwork definitely paid off. And then third place coming in, they did a really good job at the roadblock with shooting the arrows. The baseball wives, who I didn't think had a shot in hell at making it even to the third season, have now checked in third.
I love these girls. I love their energy, how they're just so happy about everything.
Yeah. And then after third, another team that I was worried about because they got lost even trying to go to LAX. Man, have they learned a lot so far these first 3 episodes. We've got none other than Tim and Danny, the friends from Oklahoma. They checked in fourth with Phil. And then coming in fifth place, because they worked very well. There was definitely an alliance too with Tim and Danny, who checked in fourth. They worked very, very well with Brandon and Adam this episode. The bearded brother. The bearded friends, sorry.
Beard friends.
Yeah, that's right. They're from Chico, California, middle of nowhere. So Tim and Dane checked in fourth, and then right behind them we have Brandon and Adam, who got in fifth. And this was not an easy leg for Leo and Jamal, the Afghanimals.
No.
However, they had some problems with flights as well. However, they ended up getting sixth, and because then they worked so closely with the Ice Girls, their race wifeys. Getting seventh place was the Ice Girls. Now, here's where I'm really surprised, because then checking in eighth was the team that went from kind of first to worst, because Tim and Marie got first place. They were even strong in the second, last episode. This episode, they really struggled, and they didn't seem to be working well together. They have not worked clearly well with other teams. They now checked in 8th. James, are you surprised they didn't use their express pass?
Yes and no. I think the competitor in them is maybe thinking that they're so good that they don't need to use it yet, especially when they have 2 more legs to use it on. And I don't know. I think it goes both ways. I was shocked, but I also wasn't, because I feel like they're going to wait till the last minute when it's most advantageous for them to use it.
Exactly. Here's the thing, though. Because Chester and Ephraim took different flights from the get-go, they really had no idea of knowing if Chester and Ephraim, they were the only team that they weren't really sure where they were at on in the race. I was just surprised that although they wanted to use it later on in the race when they really needed it, Tim and Marie, they had no clue, though, if they were last or not, and they knew they were towards the back. I think I personally would have caved. I would have been so nervous because I didn't know if I was in last, and I knew I was close to last. They did such a poor job working together on that puzzle. I think I would have gone with Marie. I'm glad they didn't, but I would have gone with Marie and just said, screw it, I'm using the express pass.
I would have too, and also just seeing that the ice girls had just left the puzzle.
Yeah.
And how the
Afghanimals
said that it took them 3 hours, which, yeah, it was a lie. It was a little long to lie about. I would have used my express pass probably.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
it looks like you're just a tougher competitor, James, than we would have been, because, yeah, I think I would have just been like, oh, this is too close. So, yeah.
Well, I think they really, again, they took a risk, but at the same time, it was a detour that was easily doable. It was a puzzle, So it's probably one of those things where if we just shut up and do this, again, they probably only edited the points where they were arguing.
Yeah, so, of course.
To me, it was probably, again, the detour, it was one of the things where it wasn't worth using the express pass.
Absolutely. And I love on this one, I want to be Phil's friend, the host.
Yeah.
And, he was checking everyone in, and he just has the power to totally screw with people. And I'm glad that he uses that power. And I'm sure that we only see even a little bit of what he actually does. And so when Tim and Marie checked in, just because they're so cocky and arrogant, I'm so glad that he was like, I'm sorry to say you've come in last.
So was I. To see that expression on their face,
perfect.
Loved it.
And
yeah,
then,
Phil.
Well done, Phil. And then he was like, you have come in last, except for one team. So just sneaking in is Tim and Marie in 8th place, which does mean, though, that our boys, the NFL players, the second they land in Portugal, the race is over for them, which is so sad. Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine just landing. Haven't even started one roadblock or one detour and seeing Phil at the airport.
Yeah. It's just, I'm so frustrated already because, we talked about after the first episode, if we could pick a team that we wanted off the show, it would have been the father-daughter team, Haskoti and Nanya.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if she's listening and we just totally butchered it.
It's a beautiful name, but...
Yeah, they needed to be out. However, when we talked about the first one, we all said how much we loved Rowan and Shane. Then they were out. We've also talked about what a strong team that Chester and Ephraim were going to be this race. They were forced to be reckoned with. Then they're out.
I know.
So I'm just going to start saying teams that I don't like. I'm going to start saying that I love them because every team that I like and I root for is leaving.
Yeah, so we need to be careful because we're jinxing all of our favorite teams.
We totally are. So that's kind of what happened as far as the wrap-up of what happened. But before we get into predictions, first of all, James, don't go quite yet, but I just want to say how much fun it is to have you via phone, even though you're out of town right now. We're having so much fun here.
Thank you.
Of course, and we hope that all of you that are listening right now or watching on YouTube, we hope that you're having as much fun as we are. We'll keep up the fun because you can go on to iTunes. Make sure you look up AfterBuzz TV, The Amazing Race.
Best show in the world.
Best show in the world. Best AfterBuzz TV wrap-up show, we think, in the world.
Best show in the world and a show that you can see the world.
Exactly. So anyway, make sure that we're able to still bring this show to you each and every week. Make sure you're always listening to us. Please feel free to leave comments, not only on iTunes, but leave comments on YouTube as well. I mean, we're extremely passionate about the show. That's why we're here.
Talk about it.
We don't like to talk about it not only just here, you're right, but we like to communicate with you all about the show as well. So leave comments, but then also, most importantly, we have a little rivalry going on here at AfterBuzz TV. All the hosts think that they have the best show, And that's why we love to have you rate us, is because we want to know truly who has the most loyal and loving fans. So you can go up to 5 stars. So I know this is a cheesy plug, but come on, everybody. Let us win our bet here in the offices that we truly are the best hosts and have the best show to talk about at AfterBuzz TV.
Right. So rate, comment, because we love to talk about it, and we love to talk to you guys, our fans.
That's right. And speaking of talking...
Amen.
Hey, well, thank you, James. Glad to see you're still here. But now it's time for our news, gossips, predictions. It's all coming up right now.
AfterBuzz TV News.
James,
right.
do you have any news?
Do I on the show?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
just news, your thoughts, predictions,
Yeah,
what's going
what
to
do you
come
think?
next.
What are your...
Oh my gosh. Well, I printed off the chart of all their placements from the last 3 episodes, so I
Uh-huh.
can get an idea of how everyone's doing.
I love your
I-
dedication, like graphs and charts, I'm sure, in your office right now, James.
Yes.
Well, I want to say Tim and Marie are going to go home next because they got first in episode 1 and they've gotten 8th the last 2 episodes, and it's down to the last 8 teams. So if they're not able to step it up and if they're not able to play smart, they probably have a shot at going home, but I think this is when they're probably going to use their Express Pass. So I predict Tim and Marie using their Express Pass. I predict them probably giving their other Express Pass to Nicole and Travis, because in the preview we saw how aggressive Nicole was about giving information to them in exchange for their other Express Pass. So I think it's going to be played. I think they're going to give it to Nicole and Travis, and I think that Nicole and Travis actually might keep up their streak and get first or second, and then I think last place, if it's not Tim and Marie for playing a stupid game, I think that our Ice Crew girls, Allie and Ashley, will be the ones going home next week.
Got it. Now, here's the thing, though. Do you think it would really be smart for Tim and Marie to give an Express Pass to a team that's already doing so strong? I mean, I think I would. Go ahead.
That's a good point. I was just in the preview. It just seems like Tim and Marie. I mean, and the fact that Tim and Marie were even at a point in the race of next leg in the preview where where Travis and Nicole were. You know what I mean? It feels like there might be an equalizer next leg where all the teams are going to be very neck and neck.
Right.
So it ultimately depends on how desperate Tim and Marie really are, especially if it's an equalizer. They're going to be more stressed because it's anyone's game.
For sure. I guess if it was me, I would want to use an Express Pass on a team that I know I can beat. I would give the Express Pass to the Ice Girls, being like, I'm going to save them for this round because I know I can beat them later on in the race. But I'm with you. Definitely interesting. I was really surprised to see Tim and Marie kind of falling behind. Teams I think are still going to remain with us, and I'm so nervous I'm going to jinx it. But yeah, I think you're right. There is an equalizer, it sounds like. I think you're right on, James. I don't think Travis and Nicole are going to go anywhere yet. I just think that they work too well under pressure. Why are our music coming already? Okay, here we go. I'll go fast. Travis and Nicole are going to be okay. I think Tim and Danny, they're really starting to learn quick. I don't think they're going anywhere. Our baseball wives have learned a lot. I would say, if anything, I hate to say it, but I wonder if already seeing a quick glimpse of the Afghanimals kind of having a breakdown. I wouldn't be surprised if they start falling behind a little bit. I'm with you, James. I think the Ice Girls also have a lot of work to do because I just don't know if they have the brains and the strength to keep this up for many more episodes. What about you, Jessica?
Right.
My baseball bunnies got to stay with me. I just love them so much. I think that they are definitely going to stay in the top because they have traveled before and they know what to do. I think the NHL girls, the Ice Bunnies, might work their way down, if not get eliminated. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of the X's, so I kind of hope that we say goodbye to them, and I think that they're way too cocky to keep it up. So those are my predictions.
I don't know. I think Tim and Marie, they are too conniving. I think they're they're so conniving. I don't think they can be eliminated yet. I don't
think they'll be eliminated, but I don't think that they're going to get high.
Got it. All right, so those are our predictions. That is our wrap-up show. That's a big episode.
Seriously, I'm really hoping, though, the next episode has less about the flights. I like seeing more action.
Yeah. I'm thinking hopefully now that they're in Europe, I'm sure they're hoping to go to maybe some other European countries first, and maybe not have to do so many flights. We'll see. James, anything else, buddy?
No, that's it. Great show, you guys. You both look great. I've been watching you both, and yeah,
Where can they
I
find
miss
you,
guys.
James?
Besides traveling around the country right now, James, where can they find you online at least?
They can find me on Twitter at James Wallington and on Instagram at Mr. James Wally. And I'm actually also taking donations. I'm going to be attending an event next year called Reality Rally, and I'm raising money for breast cancer research. And they can go to my Twitter or my Facebook to find the link. And if anyone has $1 to donate, $1 helps. Any sort of donation helps. I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
James, that's amazing. Good
Yes.
job out of you.
Yay, James. You're such a great guy.
All right, so make sure everybody goes and follows James on Twitter at James Wallington and help him out. Look for that link and help him go raise some great money for a great cause.
And it's October month, breast Cancer Awareness Month.
You got it. And thanks again, everyone, for listening and watching. I'm Justin Nicols. You can find me on Twitter at Justin J. Nicols, and also on pretty much every social media outlet. So Instagram, Vine, I mean, you name it, I'm on it. It's all at the same title, Justin J. Nicols.
And you can find me at JessXOXO Carroll, 2 R's, 2 L's on all of the fun social media sites.
So that's going to do us. I can't even talk anymore. I'm exhausted. That's going to do it for us tonight here at AfterBuzz TV. Well done,
Yes.
girl.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
and we
everybody.
will see you next Monday.
See you later.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
See you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.